We're going to take a look at some champion number 14s, icons of the game, and some huge round 14 moments. And I get the pleasure of starting with Bobby Skilton, who is the greatest of them all. And Dogsy, or Luke Jackson as we call him, or Dogsy we call him, Luke Jackson, who helps produce this segment and comes up with this vision. Got some vision that not many would have seen of Bob Skilton, and just the lateral movement and the skill and the way he could dance around players. I could watch this for absolute hours, just how clean he was. Never wasted a possession, and just how skilled he was. So I'll go through his record. Only played 237 games, which probably is a lot in that era, but 3 Brownlows, 9 best and fairest, 3 times leading goal kicker, AFL Team of the Century as the Rover, and just a beautiful human being, Bobby Skilton. Every time I've met Bob, one of the nicest guys I've ever met, and so good to those coming through the game as well.
Good start, Llordo. Now let's go to the Cats. And Joel Selwood, a famous number 14, 6-time All-Australian was Joel Selwood, 355 games, the most finals ever in the history of the AFL with 40, the most AFL games as a captain, 3 times best and fairest, 4 premierships, and there's just not enough compliments you could give this guy the way he played his football. He was universally loved. He got booed a little bit from opposition fans, but that was because he was so good and he went in hard like this. You don't see too many players go in as hard and taped up all the time. Joel Selwood, he'd come back out with tape around his head. But one of the great things about him was he used to kick big goals too. And when he'd take a mark 30 to 40 metres out, he did not miss goals, Joel Selwood. He was a superstar.
Absolute superstar. What a leader he was, as was this man, Paul Kelly. I mean, speaking of tough and courageous and everything you would want in a footballer, he was that. He was great overhead. He took some really strong, hangers almost, 1995 Brownlow medalist. He was able to burst out of stoppage, and everyone wants a midfielder like this, who is tough, courageous, can go forward, hit the scoreboard, keeps his feet clean, and was able to go forward and do maximum damage as well. So, like Joel Selwood, no one ever said a bad word about this man. Sydney Team of the Century, Brownlow medalist, and just went about his business in a no-fuss way.
And like Bobby Skilton, he's got a statue.
Yeah.
Bobby's got one outside the Lakeside Oval, and he's got one outside the SCG.
And rightly so.
Round 14 moments, and is this the greatest moment of them all? Is this the greatest mark that's ever been taken? Gary Moorcroft stood on the shoulders of Brad Johnson's probably only moment at full-back. I don't think Brad ever ventured back to the back line after that, but I'm embarrassed. I was trying to take the kick and he couldn't get up, but I think Gary kicked about 5 or 6 in that quarter, in that third quarter, and Bruce's commentary was awesome as well.
Takes them being, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Round 14 also, Llordo, go back to 1988, and the great Stephen Silvani did this on Craig Starcevich. And this, for the times, TJ, was a huge moment in footy, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely it was. I mean, there was no doubt that the guy was a champion and reached enormous heights, but to actually reach those heights on that day, there's that famous Michael Roach mark. Well, that is every bit as up there as Michael Roach, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree.
In terms of its altitude.
Yeah. Every player wants to kick a winning goal after the siren. Well, this guy did it twice, would you believe? Gary Rowan, both in round 14s, 2017. We're going to see it here when he's playing for the Sydney Swans in the goal square there. How good is that with the one hand? You can see the time, and he goes back and kicks that. The Swans get it done by a point. I reckon he's the best 8-possession player in the game, Gary Rowan. That's about what he averages, but he has much bigger impact than what his disposals are. And there's the response. And then here it is again, round 14 against the Western Bulldogs, and he goes back this time from a much tougher position. 9 for Shine's not happy with that, and he goes back and slots it straight through the middle after the siren. Every boy's dream, and he did it twice.
Good vision, isn't it?
Don't like the mask.
No, I don't think anybody.
Well, we were going through a pandemic at the time.
Hey, was this the greatest home and away game of all time? We're going back to 2009, and the Saints were taking on the Cats, and they'd 14 in a row, 13 in a row, and this was massive. So there was so many highlights in this game. They ended up playing in the grand final against each other. Big guard, he took a great mark at the end. Rewalt was fantastic. Going inside, a minute 34 to go, and the Big Show did that. Have a look at that for a mark. Goes back, kicks the goal. They win the game. What many people think is one of the greatest of all time.
I love that game myself, yeah. Both teams flying, absolutely flying at the time. Class above any other side. 2002, round 14. James Hird and I had both missed 8 weeks through injuries. James has had his head caved in Fremantle through a Mark McVeigh knee, and I just hurt my finger. I was out for 8 weeks, ruptured all the tendons in my finger, and it was a controversial game in the sense that this happened where Credit dropped his knees into me, and I sort of went at Stephen a little bit. And he started whacking my hand. Whacking my hand. It was a huge story at the time, Damo. You might have reported on that
I do
one.
recall it. Yeah, it was. And the rules were effectively changed as a result of it. The targeting of an injured player.
Was that after the Brisbane incident with the targeting of the?
There was also Stevie Johnson.
Was that after?
That would have been after this, but the narrative around this type of behaviour was obviously kicked off and ramped up as a result of your involvement in it.
And I don't like seeing this one. So it was a point down, and as a goal I should have kicked. The only time I had a shot after the siren, and unfortunately missed it. There was Brad Johnson. He can laugh at me now because we've shown him. He did miss twice, and I showed him a few weeks back. Well, that was me missing after the siren, unfortunately.
Good stuff, good memories. So next week, number 15. Who'd be the best 15?
Malcolm Blight.
Who told you that?
Did you get one of these?
Malcolm Blight.
It wasn't. You didn't have one
What's that, mate?
on the deep dive.
No, I noticed that.
I guess we heard you because you were telling the producer all about it, that you weren't included in this.
Yeah. Well, why would I be? I'm a sack of meat and a miserable human. Apparently.
Oh, can't tell you.
Anyway.
Get on with it.